But for now, just keep doing what you doing. Baby girl, it's me and you, and I ain't done finished or through it, so just throw that ass up, I'm throwing money down. I wanna see you twirl, I'm throwing money round. You got me hypnotized, girl, I want it now. Baby, tell me what it is, cause I'm gon' work the body till the sun comes up. Promise that you won't ever forget me.
How's it going, everyone? Sean here from RawtechniqueStudios. Now, this is January's free mix and master from the monthly entry contest that you guys could enter. Just sign up to the newsletter and go ahead and follow the steps in the free mix and master YouTube video on entering this competition. Every month I just pick one song, I do a free mix and master, and make a YouTube video about it as well. So let's take a look at this one. As you can see from the artwork before, this is Glamorous Seduction by EAZ featuring Woods. And let's jump into it. There's going to be a couple things I want to emphasize in this one, like EQ, because there's certain things that were being EQ'd out of the vocals, as well as noise reduction plugins on the beat, because there was a hiss, as well as EQ on the getting rid of a problem in the beat. So let's jump into the beat first, and we're going to take a listen to the original beat without these plugins on it. Alright, so you notice that just noise going on in there, as well as there's a lot of high-end information that is like a frequency that's really high pitch coming through. So take a listen real quick. The noise is causing a high pitch frequency to just kind of blare throughout. So what I did was start with X noise plugin, and you'll see what it's doing. I just set my threshold. And let's take a listen. Here's before and after. Okay, so there's benefits and there's negatives to using a plugin like this. Now, the good thing is getting rid of a lot of that noise inside of the recording. But the bad thing is it's also pulling down some of that high-end information. Yeah, I could back it off so it doesn't affect the audio as much. It just gets the noise. But then I'm not getting as much noise. So I did an in-between, and I found this setting to be an in-between of getting good quality and getting rid of the noise at the same time. But you'll notice there's still something going on in there. If I press play, the noise that was not taken out is that high pitch frequency that's just ringing in there. So then what I did was threw on an EQ, and you can see right here I did a big dip out at 13,000 hertz, right, almost 14,000 hertz. And let's take a listen before, and then I'll turn it on so you hear after. Alright, so it's very subtle, but you hear the difference. There's that high-pitched noise going on in there that is reduced. And then I wanted to make the beat kind of stand out more. There's a lot of information in the center. I really like how that guitar sounds, and the kick drum and everything just sounds really cool, but I wanted the side information to be turned up a bit. So I used this plugin, Center by Waves, and I increased the side information by 3.9 decibels and just left the center alone. So here's before, and then I'll turn it on so you can hear after. As you can hear, when it's on, it opens up. There's more level and presence in the sides. Now that we're done with the beat, we could jump into what I did on the vocals. So let's take a vocal, just one of them here, and this is on the verse, and take a look at what we did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute out the mastering chain. Just bypass these plugins here so you won't hear what's being affected after the fact. This is just on the vocal itself. Alright, so now first thing was a de-esser. I'm going to bypass everything else. So here's the vocal, just with a little bit of de-essing going on to tame the high end.
Rolling out, baby girl, why you holding out? You know I'll be popping those bands, making you dance with no hands, holding your stance, got me in a trance. Give me one chance just for the night.
Okay, so it's just taming S's or anything high pitched coming through on the vocal, any sibilants. Up next was EQ. Now this is the part I really wanted to emphasize, is because every vocal is different. You have to EQ vocals different based on how they were recorded, how the tonal quality is of that person's voice, whatever the situation, you have to EQ it different. Even if it's the same person, if they recorded in 2 different studios, you might have to EQ it a little bit different depending on how the studio is set up. Is there room noise? Is there something going on? Are they standing back further from the mic? So all those things come into play when EQing a vocal. Now this one had some weird nasally kind of sound going on to it, so I did a lot of dipping out around 1K and the frequencies nearby. The rest is pretty much I left alone, other than the high pass filter right here. So let's take a listen before the EQ, and then I'll turn it on so you hear after.
Rolling out, baby girl, why you holding out? You know I'll be popping those bands, making you dance with no hands, holding your stance, got me in a trance. Give me one.
So as you could hear, when the EQ's engaged, you could hear that nasally sound that's coming through kind of just gets taken out, and the voice sounds a little more natural. So let's take a listen again. Here's before.
Stance, got me in a trance. Give me one chance just for the night. Promise everything will be alright. Safe in my arms, away from harm. Girl, I'm the bomb.
Okay, so it just brings out a little more natural sound to it. Now, the process of EQing, I go like this. So let's say this is flat. Start all over. This is what I would start with. Before even listening, I know I'm going to want a high pass filter. So I bring it around 100 or so, and then I'm going to start with that. Then what I'm going to do is increase my Q on one of these bands. So right here on the Q, make it bigger on the number, but what it's going to do is narrow the Q. Then what I'm going to do is press play, listen, do a boost, drag it around, and see what really stands out, what the problem frequencies are. So let's take a listen.
Rolling out, baby girl, why you holding out? You know I'll be popping those bands, making you dance with no hands, holding your stance, got me in a trance. Give me one chance just for the night. Promise everything will be alright. Safe in my arms, away from harm.
Okay, so if you notice, when I'm boosting around this area, it sounds really phasey and nasally, and yeah, boosting 1K makes it sound more nasally, but I could hear that there's problems right there. It's too much already in the recording itself. So this really emphasizes and makes those sounds stand out. Now I know to dip those out. If you notice, when I was over here, it didn't sound as bad. It just sounded like the low end was being boosted. When I was up here, it sounded like just the high end was being boosted. But right here, it sounded like there was a problem. So I'm going to press play. I'm going to do it with a couple other cues and get all this information that sounds bad dipped down.
Rolling out, baby girl, why you holding out? You know I'll be popping those bands, making you dance with no hands, holding your stance, got me in a trance. Give me one chance just for the night. Promise everything will be alright. Safe in my arms, away from harm. Girl, I'm the bomb. You calling my government, know that you loving it, don't think enough of it. I can see it in your eyes. I know that you wanted this, but for now, just keep doing what you doing. Baby girl, it's me and you, and I ain't done finished or through it, so just Rolling out, baby girl, why you holding out? You know I'll be popping those bands, making you dance with no hands, holding your stance. Got me in a trance, give me one chance just for the night. Promise everything will be alright. Safe in my arms, away from harm.
All right, so that's all it is. Every vocal is gonna be different, but that's the whole point. Is you're finding the problem frequencies and then you're taking them out with the EQ. So EQ played a big part in making these vocals sound a little bit more natural instead of nasally. All right, so now we can move on to the next step, is compression. And I'm doing like a medium attack, 24 milliseconds, and then a little past medium on the release, so about 700 milliseconds. And then ratio, I usually stick around 3:1, 4:1 sometimes, and then I just pull down my threshold, get a couple dB of gain reduction, and add that back in on the gain. So let's take a listen before, and then I'll turn it on so you can hear after.
Rolling out, baby girl, why you holding out? You know I'll be popping those bands, making you dance with no hands, holding your stance. Got me in a trance, give me one chance just for the night. Promise everything will be alright. Safe in my arms, away from harm. Girl, I'm the bomb, you calling my government.
All right, so turning it on and off, you could hear that there's a little bit of a level boost, as well as it sounds like some of the low end information starts coming back in. I like compression for that purpose, controlling my dynamics, adding a little bit of gain, and making it sound a little bit more full. So up next was the enhancer. This is just to add in some high gain and low gain. So let's take a listen before, and then I'll turn it on so you can hear what it is after.
Rolling out, baby girl, why you holding out? You know I'll be popping those bands, making you dance with no hands, holding your stance. Got me in a trance, give me one chance just for the night. Promise everything will be alright. Safe in my arms, away from harm. Girl, I'm the bomb, you call.
All right, so you can hear that it just enhances the high end, makes it sound a little bit more bright and full. Okay, so under my sends right here, I have a couple different buses that are going out to different aux tracks. So what I'm doing is bus 11 and 12 is my reverb send. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up that. I just click it, the fader pops up, so you could decide how much you want sent to the reverb unit. And then let's open up our Deverb plugin here. With the Deverb plugin, I usually go with like 1.6 on the decay. That is a starting point for me, and then I'll bring it down based on the sound I'm going for. If I want a reverb that just has a little bit of a touch of reverb to it, that doesn't have a long tail to it, which is the decay, it's the tail of the reverb, then I'll bring it down to 200 milliseconds just to have a hint of reverb on there, but without hearing the tail of it. If I want more of a long reverb, then I'll do a 1.6 or so. That's a good amount of tail. And then if I want something in between, then I'll do something like this, where I dragged it down to 848 milliseconds of decay. So the reverb lasts only that long, trailing off after. So that's about it. I usually do the cut right around 9, 10, 11K or so. Pre-delay, 5 milliseconds is typical for what I do. And then the fusion, I just throw it up in the middle or so. Let's listen before and after with a reverb.
Rolling out, baby girl, why you holding out? You know I'll be popping those bands, making you dance with no hands, holding your stance. Got me in a trance, give me one chance just for the night. Promise everything will be alright. Safe in my arms, away.
Okay, so reverb just simply makes it sound like it's in a space. It's not as dry. It kind of just helps a lot of things. It makes it sound better, in my opinion. I love how reverb sounds on vocals, even when it's rap. And then it also helps blend a little bit with the beat, because reverb pushes vocals back in the mix. If a dry vocal is up on top, reverb is going to make it sound like it's in a space, which means it sounds like it's pushed back. So up next, we have my bus 13 and 14 right here. This one is going to a Affix Vintage Exciter. This is simply adding high-end crunch sound to it. So it adds harmonics to the high end to make it sound brighter and crunchier. So let's take a listen before and after.
Rolling out, baby girl, why you holding out? You know I'll be popping those bands, making you dance with no hands, holding your stance. Got me in a trance, give me one chance just for the night. Promise everything will be alright.
All right, so it adds that high end brightness to it. and it just brings it forward a little bit in the mix because I like the reverb. I went from a forward dry sound, and then the reverb pulls it back a little bit, and then this Affix Vintage Exciter brings it a little bit forward with the brightness, but it still sounds like there's reverb on it. So let's take a listen. Here's without any reverb and without any the Aural Exciter on it.
Rolling out, baby girl, why you holding out?
And then here's both.
Rolling out, baby girl, why you holding out?
So with both of the reverb and the Affix Vintage Aural Exciter, you're getting a bright, forward-sounding vocal, but at the same time, it sounds like it's part of the mix because it has the reverb on it. Bus 7 and 8 here, this is just my delay sends. So you see right here, bus 7 and 8, this is delay. Yeah, it helps to name these sends. So if you wanted to, when you're doing your mix, go ahead, right click on it, rename, and you could call it like delay. That way you could keep everything organized a little better. I'm so used to just throwing these buses up, I don't even name them sometimes until it gets crazy, and then I'll name them so I can find them. But right here is my delay, and you can see that I automated it. All I do to automate, I have the hand tool right here. Go in, click, click, and then pull up, and now it's not muted. So when you start, what you have to do is on your aux that has your delay, you're going to go, it usually starts on volume. You're going to go down to mute, and then you're going to press mute. That way, when you draw it in, you're unmuting those parts that you're drawing in. All right. That's it for that part. And then, also on my delay unit, I'm using Real ADT, which is just making my delays sound wider instead of just being in the center delay. So that's about it on that. That covers the verse. And let's take a listen to the completed verse.
Rolling out, baby girl, why you holding out? You know I've been popping those bands, making you dance with no hands, holding your stance, got me in a trance. Give me one chance just for the night. Promise everything. All right. Promise everything.
So that's the verse without any mastering. But let's go down here and add our mastering back in. So here is a linear phase EQ. All I'm doing is adding a little bit of high end to the mix. So let's take a listen before and after.
Rolling out, baby girl, why you holding out? You know I've been popping those bands, making you dance with no hands, holding your stance, got me in a trance. Give me one chance just for the night. Promise everything. So doing a little boost right here made it to where the vocals sound a little bit more clear and you could hear what's going on. And then I go to this Affix Vintage Aural Exciter, and this one I'm not putting in as much as I did on the vocal itself. This is going to be going from the beat, everything, all vocals, beat, everything's going into this, so I didn't want it as crunchy and bright. But let's listen before and after. Rolling out, baby girl, why you holding out? You know I've been popping those bands, making you dance with no hands, holding your stance, got me in a trance. Give me one chance just for the night. Right. So you can hear that extra high end, that crunchy sound to it. That's the harmonics coming in. And then what I have is a compressor. Now, you don't have to use SSL compressor. You could use anything. The C1 compressor is just as good. Regular compressor. It's just, this one supposedly has like a warm sounding to it. I don't know. I don't really hear the difference between this compressor or any other one. So it's just this one has a cool little mastering setting, which makes it easier. So that's why I tend to use this one more. But let's take a listen before and after. Rolling out, baby girl, why you holding out? You know I've been popping those bands, making you dance with no hands, holding your stance, got me in a trance. Give me one chance just for the night. This makes it to where everything sounds like it's pumped up. It sounds like some low end is coming back in, as well as everything sounds a little bit tighter. So I tend to reference this as the glue for everything. So compression on the master fader is like the glue for the track. Up next, I'm using a tape emulator, the J37, and just one of their settings called Mastering Fat, Tight, and Open. So let's take a listen before and after. Rolling out, baby girl, why you holding out? You know I've been popping those bands, making you dance with no hands, holding your stance. Got me in a trance, give me one chance just for the...
It makes it sound fatter, tighter, and brighter at the same time, more open sounding. So that's a nice little tonal characteristic that's added to my mastering chain. And then lastly, I have the limiter. This is simply to quantize down to CD quality, 16-bit, apply dither and the noise shaping and everything. That's all just part of the process of quantizing down. And then over here, you're getting your level. So I like putting my output ceiling between minus 0.1 and minus 0.3 so it doesn't hit absolute zero. And then I simply pull down my threshold and get a good level. The process of doing this, I start out like that, 0 and 0. I'll press play. So let's just show you how this works.
Rolling out, baby girl, why you holding out? You know I've been popping those bands, making you dance with no hands, holding your stance. Got me in a trance, give me one chance just for the night. Promise everything will be alright. Safe in my arms, away from harm. Girl, I'm the bomb, you call it my government.
Okay, so what I'm doing with the limiter, when I'm pulling this down, I'm using this arrow in between because I want to affect both of these, output and threshold ceiling. I don't want to hear the level while I'm limiting. I want that to be done after the fact. So what I'm listening for is especially low end. Mostly just low end will change when you're limiting because that has the most power coming through in the mix. So if a kick drum is hitting the limiter too hard, then you're actually going to be losing some of that bass information. So the limiter is going to be pulling that down too much because that transient's coming in so hot. So what you're doing is trying to find as much level as you possibly can without affecting any low end information like your kicks or snares sometimes because the transients. Anything that has a high transient is going to be hitting it. So not just low information, high transient information. So right around minus 8.3, right around there is a good spot for this because the low end or the kick drum and snare and all that is not coming through and being pulled down. It's just coming through. So then what I do is adjust my output ceiling. I bring this up. I go minus 0.1 or so, and then now it's going to be really loud, so press play.
Rolling out, baby girl, why you holding out? You know I've been popping those bands, making you dance with no hands, holding your stance. Got me in a trance.
On this mix, I went through, did bass drops and delays. There was a couple different vocals, so I did the same process of going through de-esser, EQ, all that. And adjusted that all up.
You got me hypnotized, girl, I want it now. Baby, tell me what it is, cause I'm gon' work the body till the sun comes up. Promise that you won't ever forget me when I beat it down so lovely. You gon' say I beat it up so deadly. I'm changing up the game and I'm gon' shut it down. Oh baby, back to you, is you with me now?
There's only one way to tell if you with this. I know it's hard to tell if you can't really get this. You're high strung, learn the notes and you could hit this. I make a woman out you, baby, I'ma need a witness. Living life without a rush and I won't read the message. I take more than an hour to reply and send it. But when I'm with you, there is no discrimination. I tell it to you right without a hesitation. Cause when it comes to love, baby, I'ma play my part so you could know and I could know how real it was right from the start. Then I could make a difference within your life or in your heart. You could make the pages turn and I could draw out all the art. I could write my rhymes with a pen, you could fill it up with ink. I'm just saying we can work together, tell me what you think. $1 billion dreams and I'm in it. By the time I'm finished, everybody will know we the winners. Tell me, is you with it?